don't need to tell you this, but it can feel quite vulnerable to pose in front of a camera, especially as a woman in her early 40s attempting to take promotional photos. I can get caught up in how deep my wrinkles are getting or how the shape of my body is changing, but somehow Joy is able to pull me out of that negative mindset. She reminds me, sometimes with words, but mostly with her presence, that simply being who I am is beautiful. The light is already there, and she will find a way to capture it. I don't have to pretend to be anything other than myself. Reading the pages of this exquisite book gave me the same feeling as sitting in front of Joy's camera lens. She's teaching all of us to see the way she sees, with compassion, kindness, curiosity, and wonder. We get to soak in her passionate, insightful words and let them do their work on our hearts, reflecting who we are and who we are becoming. Through the simple practices she lays out for us, photography, breathing, and just living our daily lives, Joy shows us how to be present to the magic that is happening all around us. She teaches us how to keep looking for the light and to be awake to the small, ordinary moments that might just change our lives. J.J. Heller. Part 1. Why becoming present feels so hard. 1. How I began practicing presence. A few months after my 39th birthday, I was lying in a hospital bed hooked up to all kinds of tubes, trying to give myself my very first insulin shot. I had just been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. I also happened to be pregnant with our 6th child, and the doctors were not optimistic about the baby's outcome. It wasn't great timing. The week prior, my husband Donnie had flown from Nashville to California to attend the funeral of one of his best friends who had taken his own life. This friend was a radiant man with a beautiful wife and 2 young children. His death was an unbelievable shock, and my husband was devastated. On the day I was discharged from the hospital, I felt so grateful to be alive, but I also felt the undercurrent of deep sadness. Donnie and I were each, in our own ways, trying to figure out how to grieve. We also had 5 young children looking to us to know how to carry on. When it comes to parenting, there is just never a convenient time to fall apart. Once home, I then had to learn to live as a type 1 diabetic, which meant keeping close track of my blood sugar numbers, tracking everything I ate and drank, giving myself regular injections, and prioritizing rest. This new way of having to care for myself became an incredibly enlightening experience, and for the first time in my life, I could measure the effect that stress had on my body. I found that when I would start to worry and get caught in a spiral of anxiety, my blood glucose numbers would spike, putting my body into fight or flight mode. And then, when I would dose insulin, my levels would plummet to levels dangerous for both me and the baby. It was clear that I had to find a way to stay calm to keep both of us stable and healthy. My fluctuating sugar levels were also contributing to vision loss, which felt absolutely terrifying to me as a working photographer. I became fueled with an urgency to document as much of my life as possible while I could still see. I cleaned off a shelf in our kitchen and put my camera there to be easily within reach. My camera has always been my go-to anti-anxiety tool. As a little girl, I remember playing in my room and hearing my dad screaming at my mom down the hall. I'd feel so confused and terrified. I remember doing a lot of praying for him to calm down, but when that wouldn't work, I'd pull out my small plastic camera that I'd gotten one Christmas, peer through the viewfinder, and pretend I was directing a movie. Somehow, just looking through that tiny square allowed me to focus on the small things in my room that made me feel safe, instead of feeling out of control and afraid. My camera became my constant companion in life. When I was 19, I took some film photography classes at the local community college and spent hours in the darkroom falling in love with the process of watching images develop. Every week, I'd gather up my strips of negatives and explore the magic of light. I painted backdrops and set up studio lighting in my mom's garage.